Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Conversations. Today's episode, we have a special guest, Cesar Marin, and he is the owner and founder of Cultivating Wisdom and is a dynamic entrepreneur and esteemed former CNN producer. He has a passion for empowering individuals through knowledge. He has successfully built a platform that promotes personal growth and enlightenment through the practice of microdosing, and his commitment to wisdom cultivation has made him a respected figure in the psychedelic industry. He is a visionary leader that continues to inspire and transform many lives. And Conscious Conversations is a podcast and a global community of self-healers, cycle breakers, and new earth leaders. Here, we empower you to have uncomfortable conversations and show you deep healing through communication as we collectively bring awareness to our own triggers, habits, traumas, and soul's inner wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cesar, and we're so excited to dive into this conversation today.
Daria, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate Conscious Conversations. What a great title to a podcast, because that's what we should be doing. We should be having more conscious conversations with the humans around us. And it's really important that you're doing this. Proud of what you're doing. And again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I know we're also getting geared up and ready for Wonderland, which I'm so stoked. Me and Cesar, actually, we connected via Instagram like months ago, honestly, probably like a year ago. And then we met at the MAPS conference, Psychedelic Science in Denver. And now we just continue to reconnect at this wonderful mushroom conference.
That mycelium, correct. That mycelium has made that connection, and that connection is here to stay. It's so funny because when we talked that Instagram live, we talked about how Wonderland was really this opening up, almost this first book encyclopedia into the psychedelic world, when we both had this awakening last year, and how wonderful that we'll be there again, or we'll be there together this time in person and get to share some space. I'll get to hear you chat, which is awesome. So really excited about that. Really excited about what's going to go down on in Wonderland down in Miami.
Likewise. Yeah. All righty. To start off, I would love to hear, can you share with our listeners the pivotal moment or realization that really led you to explore microdosing as a tool for personal growth and transformation, and just when your journey started and what started it?
Yes, of course. I'd love to. I'd love to share that story, because it's a story like many of us have had, how microdosing has helped us to become, like I say, more authentic, more aware, more creative, more empathetic, more joyous, happier. And it all started about a year ago now, this November, where I had my first psychedelic experience right before Halloween. I had my first, what I call, awakening. And it so happened that it was the time that I was battling with a substance dependency. I had a dependency to cannabis where it was controlling me. I wasn't controlling the cannabis. And through my awakening, through my first psychedelic experiences, I start to research as a good journalist, having worked at CNN, what had happened in my body. And I start to come across the fact that this is being used for medicine, that people are using psychedelics for helping with depression and anxiety and PTSD. And I come across this term microdosing, and I'm like, what is microdosing? And as I start to read, I start to see that people are using it intentionally, the practice of microdosing, to help with their substance dependencies. And it's at that moment where my heart opens up a bit and says, okay, did you hear that? And after having that first psychedelic experience, that conscious awakeness, it was the conscious saying, maybe you can control this. Maybe you can, through microdosing, help yourself to overcome this dependency that's really having you escape and having you hide from things, and that really having you confront things. So it all happened about a year ago. And it just so also happened that it happened at the time where my life was about to get turned on its head, because I was about to get laid off from CNN. CNN, whose parent company is Warner Media, had been bought out by Discovery. And it just so happens where I knew the writing was on the wall. I had been at CNN for 25 years. And I could imagine some board meeting with people in suits looking at spreadsheets. How much does 58 make? How long have they been here? How much? Wait, number 59? How long has he been here? 25 years? How much is he making? Can't we cut all that? So it just so happens that plant medicine came into my life at that very moment, and it changed everything. It changed everything. I went from being a corporate employee at a big business to starting my own business for the first time ever at the age of 56, and navigating the waters of entrepreneurship with a big heart and an open smile to move forward. And the medicine has just taught me invaluable lessons of myself and of how to carry myself and how to look at things. And it's been a beautiful journey. I'm really appreciative of what plant medicine has done to me. And at the same time, it surrounded me by amazing people like you and people like Dennis Walker and people like Paul Stamets and people like Rick Doblin. It's just a beautiful community. And I've made incredible friends in just a year's time.
Yeah, yeah. And I really want to touch on what you said about cannabis and the dependency and the escapism. And when not even with just cannabis, a lot of it's with like alcohol. And what I really
Correct.
see is a lot of Gen Z millennials, the younger generation is really struggles to cope, or not even to cope, but to really move through in a healthy way, stress and anxiety and just life's demands.
Correct.
And I love that it's just really admirable to see someone at your age be working at CNN, going through those things, having those dependencies, being vulnerable about it, and then discovering plant medicine and it opening up your journey like that. So I love hearing that for you. And to go into the next question, this leads right into it, which is your background in TV production and media is fascinating, right? So can you tell us a little bit about how your experiences in the field contrast to your current work in the realm of psychedelics and wisdom cultivation?
It's great. It's a great question. That's a great question because they are two incredibly different worlds. They're two
Yeah.
very incredible different worlds. I worked around a lot of wonderful people, but I also worked around a lot of people who, because it's a big business, had agendas. They had agendas and they had platforms and they had messages that they wanted to get out. And working at CNN is, again, it's a huge corporation. So you do get lost in it a bit. And my analogy is that I was a sailor on a ship, on a huge ship for ages, for years. And if I had to mop, I mopped. If I had to fish, I fished. If I had to look over the bow, I looked over the bow. If I had to bring in the anchor, I brought in the anchor. Whatever it was that was needed on this ship, I was able to do, or I tried to do the best of my abilities. And then not having that and now having my own ship to sail, I always wonder if the consciousness and the hence authenticity that has come of me through psychedelic medicine, how that would have been. So there's been these questions of, how would I have dealt with my being laid off at CNN if psychedelics hadn't been in my world? And
Mm-hmm.
also, without psychedelics, could I have then transitioned into this new entrepreneurial space of, holy cow, this takes a lot to run a business. Do I have the fortitude? Do I have the belief in myself to be able to do this? So it was two totally different worlds that somehow crossed paths through plant medicine, and the plant medicine has helped me carry those to the next step. So they're two very different worlds, right? CNN producing a TV show, it's building a puzzle, right, of the news that happened during the day. That's pretty much what a TV news show is. Where now, being an entrepreneur, it's reinventing a new puzzle every single day and trying to figure out what I'm going to do and how else can we help and how can we grow this platform and how can we grow the Cultivating Wisdom community to be awakened and to be aware of what's going on and to educate ourselves of the advancements in plant medicine and how they're being used in different realms and different ways to help people who are really needed in this moment. It's I go back to the adage someone said, why does TV do, especially TV news, do what it does? It festers in it and it feeds into those narratives. And I'm like, because that's unfortunately what sells. That's what sells. And now, where before I was selling maybe division and controversy and divisiveness, now I'm selling hope. Now I'm selling love. Now I'm selling, the wonderment and beauty of life and how we should all be more awakened to the things that are in front of us.
And I have a question. So tell us a little bit about this is what's coming up for me after you just said that. In terms of the news outlets, could you speak into briefly, there's a lot of information floating out there. How can someone be able to tune in and get information from platforms like CNN and have it not be biased and it be clear? And is that something that's out there?
That's
You
a
being
that's a
someone that worked in that industry, I'm really curious about that.
that's a difficult question. And what I tell people is read both sides. Read both sides and then come up with your own opinion, right?
Yeah.
Don't come up with an opinion because you read it somewhere, you saw it somewhere. I think we live in a world nowadays, Daria, where it's like people feel like they don't have to see something to believe it, they just have to feel it. I felt that happen. Did you see it happen? Is there evidence that happens? No, but I know inside me that happened. How do you know? No, I just know. So that's it. And the fact that we also live in a world where it's not when I grew up, there was 5 TV channels, and each TV channel had a nightly news. And that's where you got your information besides newspapers and the radio. Now, anyone can have a news station, anyone can have an opinion, everyone can have an agenda. So it's listening to both sides. Listening to both sides, I think, is incredibly important if you want to be informed, if you want to put yourself in the other side's shoes for once, for 1 second. We're also quick to judge, right? We're also quick to, if you don't believe what I believe in, then you're my enemy. Then you're not on my side. If I'm pro-gun or anti-gun and you're the opposite, well, then we can't have the discussion. Yeah, but we're humans. That doesn't matter. I don't care about anything else that you have. If you don't agree with me with everything, then that's wrong. So it's first be a human. Before you make an opinion about anything, make an opinion as a human, not as because your beliefs are that, or because your political party, or because your religious beliefs, or because your national beliefs. Lead with humanity. And I think if we do that, then we'll find our own opinions. But you're right, it's very difficult nowadays because everyone seems to have an agenda. And whether that agenda is on one side or the other side, whatever your agenda is, it's very myopic to say, you know what, let me show the other side of it. So I think it's up to us. It's up to us to find that balance. But it is very difficult. You're absolutely correct. It is very difficult right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where keeping an open mind and an open heart to, I like to call it cognitive dissonance. It's like being able to be discerning and knowing thyself, like getting to know yourself, of questioning beliefs of, does this belief that I have of me thinking that life should be a certain way, is that what I adopted from the conditioning from my parents, from the conditioning from my environment or my friend group or the people I surround myself with? Or is this really truly actually what I believe? Because the mind, the subconscious mind is absorbing everything that we come into contact with, the ads, the signs that we see on the street, what we read in the news and whatnot. So I really believe it is very important to cultivate your own inner knowing, and whatever your truth or whatever your perception of reality and yourself is, and getting really clear on, what do I believe and what do I stand for? And I'd love to speak into how microdosing can support people with becoming more open-minded and really dissolving those ingrained beliefs of, this is how it should be and this is what I know to be true, because the ego knows what's right. The soul just knows.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And for me and for many people who I've talked to, microdosing has created that awareness, right? That awareness, that consciousness of awareness of, why am I thinking this way? Am I thinking this way because this is really what I believe? Or am I thinking this way because this is how I was programmed, because this is how I lived all my life, because this is how I've been systematically, been taught to believe? So it does, for me, it definitely does that. It creates that awareness, that consciousness of, why am I thinking that way? What is it that has me thinking that way? Whether it's, I have an opinion about something or I object to something. Why do you object to it? What is it that you don't like about it? What is it and how could you then maybe, instead of not liking it, understand it, right? That empathy, that what I've said before, that microdosing has helped me to be not just more authentic and more creative and more aware, but it's also made me be more empathetic of whatever conflict, looking at both sides of the conflict. In every conflict, there's an aggressor and there's a victim. And there's usually aggressors and victims on both sides. So it's about that. It's about having that empathy of being conscious of, you know what? Maybe you and I don't think the same about one particular subject, but there's, I'm sure, other things that we can have in common. Right. So open up to that, like you said, that openness, that conscious awakeness of, again, these conscious conversations. That's what it should be about.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And you're half Colombian, right? Or are you full Colombian?
No, I'm focused. So yes, my parents are both Colombian. I was born in Colombia. My parents emigrated here when I was 4 years old. So I'm very American, but muy colombiano, but muy colombiano. I was lucky enough that I guess there's good things and bad things of being an only child, but I was an only child for 12 years, which meant I could only speak to my parents in Spanish because since they emigrated here, their English wasn't the best. So if I said, I want a new pair of sneakers, they were like, sneakies? What is sneakies? What's okay? Okay. So I had to definitely keep my Spanish. So I'm incredibly grateful to my parents that they were able to nurture my Spanish and make sure that I spoke Spanish at home, and fortunately still keep the language. Very fortunate about that.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason why I ask if you're Colombian, first of all, I had a best friend growing up. Her name was Daniela, and her mom made the best arepas, and I really want to visit
Uy,
Colombia.
qué rico.
Oh.
Yes, I make arepas. Next time you're in Atlanta, Daria, we'll come get some arepas for sure.
Okay, you're gonna have to bring some to Wonderland.
Oh yes, yeah. You know what? Definitely, we'll eat arepas in Miami. I'll make sure we eat arepas in Miami.
Good. I look forward to it. Yeah, and so the reason why I asked that is because I'm curious, like having that background and like immigrating from Colombia, how does that also play a role in what you're creating and cultivating at Cultivating Wisdom? And can you speak more into how you even came up with that title and what does it mean to you to cultivate wisdom and how can someone do such thing?
Let's tackle that one first, and then I'll talk about the Hispanic lineage and how someone from a Hispanic background ends up working in psychedelics or being in psychedelics. So when my awakening happened, and I'm fascinated by what happened. I'm fascinated by what happened in my body and why I felt the way I felt and why I finally realized what breath felt like and what the different shades of green were. As I start to get on YouTube and I start to read more, there's always this common denominator of there's a lot of wisdom that comes with using plant medicine. There's some wisdom out of journeys and ceremonies. And then there's also this talk about cultivating, you know what I mean? Whether it's cultivating mushrooms or whether it's these cultivating communities to talk more about mushrooms. And somehow that thought of cultivating wisdom, which is what the mushrooms really do. The mushrooms really do cultivate wisdom. When you use them with intentions, when you use them with respect, they really do cultivate incredible wisdom in us. And that's how the term cultivating wisdom was born. It was out of this love for mushrooms. It all started as an apparel brand because at the age of 55, I wanted to manifest the fact that I was using psychedelics. I wanted to say, hey, you know what? I'm microdosing and look at me. I'm doing great. I was able to give up a substance dependency, but everything out there was very tie-dye. It was very psychedelic-ish. It was very trippy. And I said to myself, if I wear something like that, and I go to talk to somebody about microdosing psychedelics, what are they going to say? Look, old man hippie, why don't you go listen to your 8 tracks of the Grateful Dead out in the woods and then come back to us later when you're down off your high. So I was like, you know what I mean? And that's why then Cultivating Wisdom, the apparel brand started. So it was apparel like this. It says microdosing on it. So we can start these conversations so that I wear something like this and someone says, oh, you microdose? I've heard about that. I've read about that. Can you cultivate me with some wisdom so that I can smile like you're smiling? No. Or someone says, oh, you microdose? So do I. How's it going? What are you doing? I just started microdosing LSD and it's totally different. And you share these conversations. You cultivate this community. Yep. You cultivate this wisdom. And it was funny because my first big journey, besides that small one, that first one was like an awakening, but it wasn't a big, what they would call heroic dose or just a big journey. The first sense I get of the medicine, it says to me, go lie on the dining room table. And I was like, what? Go lie on the dining room table. I'm like, okay, why? And I go lie on the dining room table and then I'm sitting there just laughing like a child. I'm laughing like I'm 10 years old, just some child on top of the dining room table giggling. And I'm telling my wife, baby, don't worry, I'm not putting my feet on the table. All I can hear, Daria, is, go out and set a buffet table of wisdom to cultivate a better future. So that's what Cultivating Wisdom has then become in this platform, right? This movement in the psychedelic renaissance, that cultivating wisdom is this theme, this phrase that we all share with each other of what we're doing. We're cultivating wisdom. By teaching people about psychedelic medicine, we're cultivating wisdom. By telling people about how much a better dad I am through microdosing, I'm cultivating wisdom. By you helping the people that you guide and you help them to be better people, you're cultivating wisdom. So that cultivating wisdom becomes this movement in this psychedelic renaissance of us educating people through wisdom, of us educating people through our experiences, of us cultivating wisdom through hugs and smiles. And that's where it is. And it's going back to okay, you come from a Latin American background where obviously there's a lot of stigma. And I'm sure your parents weren't like, oh yeah, cool, awesome. Imagine at the age of 54, I'm telling my mom, that cannabis situation that I've talked to you about that I have, I'm going to be able to control it and combat it by using psychedelics. And she was like, what? Are you serious? Are you crazy? Are you serious? Have you seen how old you are? Have you seen that you have 3 children? What, are you serious? How are you? Come on. You're not being serious, right? You're joking with me. And I'm like, no, Mom, I've done some research. I've really looked into this, and people are really using this with intentions, and they're getting a lot better, and they're being able to deal with this. Just trust me a little bit. And she says, okay, great story about that. Daria said a month later, my mom sees the change in me. She sees that I speak differently. She sees that I've started my own business, and she's in Colombia, and she buys me this necklace. She buys me this mushroom necklace. And when she gives it to me, she goes, I'm so proud of what you're doing. So I tell people, my parents are proud of the fact that I use psychedelics. If that's not an endorsement enough, what else can be? They're proud of the fact that I'm using psychedelics with intentions, with integration, with responsibility, and I'm using them as a life performance enhancer. Why would you not be proud? Why would you not be proud of someone who is really finding their best selves, and they're not hiding anymore, and they're not escaping, right? Yeah. So it is a funny juxtaposition. Talking to my family, obviously, it's always, let's sit down and watch Fantastic Fungi, and then we can start the discussion. Then we can start the discussion.
That's where it started for me too. I was like, let's watch this documentary.
That's actually, you know what? I did a podcast on how to talk to your loved ones of the fact that you're using psychedelics, and it's a great entry point. Absolutely. It's a great entry point. If you have not watched with your loved ones, whether it's a spouse that you're thinking about microdosing and you don't know how to talk to them about it, Fantastic Fungi is a magical place to start, because it makes mushrooms not the bad guy. It makes mushroom actually the superhero. So it's definitely a powerful documentary.
I love that. And what I like to say is that silence breeds wisdom. And when you even talk into cultivating wisdom, what I'm thinking about is how we are cultivating wisdom through our ancestors. And it's really like ancestral wisdom that we're tapping into, because these mushrooms, adaptogens, herbs, plants, these healing modalities and entities have been around for thousands of years. Like the ancient Chinese cultures have been using mushrooms for thousands of years. And I feel like now we're having another shroom boom and a shroom awakening and a psychedelic renaissance and revolution. Yes. People are starting to wake up to the potential and the opportunity that lies within connecting to nature, which is in turn ourselves, because we're not separate from nature. We are it. So it's coming home to the remembering of that.
I love that you said that, ancestral medicine. And it's funny because in Spanish, when I'm talking about psychedelics, I'd rather use that word, ancestral medicines, than any other word, because that's what it is. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to show people, look, our ancestors have used these medicines for ages, because some government decided that they didn't want people to be awakened, and then they demonized it and made it bad and criminalized it. That doesn't mean that we should not be using them, right? Because like I tell people, what's our other options sometimes? Go to a doctor who's going to say, I really don't know what you have, but let's try these pills. And if those don't work, come back because we'll try some other ones. And the next thing you're on 4 or 5 synthetic pharmaceuticals, and maybe let me give Mother Nature a try. Let me just see. Let me just give Mother Nature a try, because she put these on here it might have been for a reason, right? The universe put these medicines here for us to use. That's what they were there for. So I think that we should all be in charge of our own healing, right? And if so many of us have proclaimed the fact that psychedelics and especially microdosing have helped us, then what let's have more studies. Let's be more open to it. Let's be more open to the possibilities that this could help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And especially my generation, especially people my generation.
Absolutely. And so that being said, how do you envision the future of psychedelics and cultivating wisdom evolving, especially in the light of the growing interest and research that is happening in this field?
I think conversation is always going to be number one. Conversation, talking about it, showing that every normal day people are using psychedelics. I think the more of us that show that psychedelic medicine is there, the more research that's done, right? The fact, I tell people, look, this isn't a passing fad. The fact that Johns Hopkins University, NYU, Emory University, Berkeley University, the Ohio State University, the fact that all of these major universities, Yale, have psychedelic programs, that just says it right there. So it's up to us to be honest, to say, look, first and foremost, psychedelics are not for everybody. They're not, okay? But they are for a lot of people, and they can help a lot of people. And look what it's done for me. Share my own personal experience. And then again, talk to people. Like I tell people, Daria, look, I'm going to speak to 5 people, of which 2 are going to say there's no way ever that I would try a psychedelic. I've read about that. It's going to change my mind. I'm going to be in a loony bin. It's going to be horrible. No, it's not. You're going to have 2 people that you're going to poke at their childhood curiosity, and they're going to go, you know what? Maybe let me read up on it a little bit more. Let me educate myself. That one person is going to be, you know what? That dude was where I am 10 months ago, 12 months ago, a year ago, and look at them now. That transformation that we all have speaks volumes. So all of us who have been transformed in one way or another through psychedelics, the more we speak about it, the more we can grow this, the more we can educate people that, look, this isn't for everybody, the more we can educate people that, look, this is done correctly with intentions. Find someone to talk to, find a facilitator, find someone who can guide you, find someone that can help you, find someone to talk to, find one to integrate with. All these are really important. So I see Cultivating Wisdom continuing to be part of this movement, where I'm about to launch a coaching system for people my generation, right? For Generation Xers, showing them how through my experience, I was able to use psychedelics and especially microdosing to get to where I am right now, after losing my job, after divorce, after having kids that are grown up and everything else that comes along with the challenges at 50 and over. So I'm putting that together. And then again, the apparel brand to continue to be this voice, this billboard for people to say, yes, we're using psychedelics. We're using them openly. We're using them responsibly. We're using them to better ourselves. So that is definitely the idea of Cultivating Wisdom moving forward, and continue to grow these relationships, right? Continue to have these relationships where we can have these conversations and we can collaborate with other people to help move this forward.
I agree. And your dedication in this field is really admirable. And I honor you for being such a voice for the Gen Xers and beyond. And like Cesar and I connected previously. I was like, I need to connect you with my mom. So
yes, definitely. If any of you young people out there need someone to talk to your parents, I'd be more than happy. To let them know, because again, you guys are young. They're going to be like, just get out of here, you kids, you and your drugs and your all this new healing and holistic and new age stuff. No. Or it's like, if they see me, they're like, wait a minute, he's like we are, and he's got children, and he's been through it. And look at him. He's not, listening to the Grateful Dead. Not a basket case, exactly. He's not some loony bin. I love the Grateful Dead, by the way.
Me too.
I'm just not wearing any tie-dye. I'm not being stigmatized as a stoner or a hippie. I think honest conversations. I think we're at the forefront, right? We're at the forefront. This is just beginning. This is
Yeah.
just beginning. Conferences like Wonderland, conferences like Psychedelic Science, and every other conference that is out there that people can get educated and people can get information, because there are a lot of people thirsty for information. There are a lot of people whose childhood curiosity has been poked at, and let's just hope that they are able to find and connect with people who have done this so that they don't do it wrong. So someone to say, oh, microdose, I've heard that's like 1.5 grams, and that's a microdose. No, it's not. Or I heard I microdose once and then that's it. My life is totally better. It just completely changes and I turn into that person I dreamed about. No, it's not how it happens. That's
It
why I
takes
continue to
work, it
say,
takes patience.
yeah, definitely. It definitely, and that's why I continue to say there's a lot of us know, like a lot of us are in the know. The us who are in the know are in the know, but there's a lot of people who aren't in the know who really need our education, who
Mhm.
really need our voices, who really need we all know. I'm not going to talk to you about microdosing. You've done it, you've been there, you've seen the power, you've seen the wonders, you're going to manifest it. But there's a lot of people around us who have these questions and just don't know. And that's why I continue to say it's up. And I look, I understand not everyone can. I understand there's people can't go to work with a shirt that says microdosing so that their boss says, wait a minute, isn't that drugs? Are you on drugs like right now? Are you microdosing right now? I get that. I understand that. But there are other people that can, you know what I mean? And open up. There's so
Yeah.
many times I've had this shirt on and people come up to me like, I have a great story. I was in the supermarket and a woman comes up to me. She goes, you microdose? And I went, yeah, how can you tell? Because of my smile? She goes, no, because your shirt, dumbass. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And she says, you know what? Before microdosing, I used to drink a bottle of wine every
Wow.
day. I get home, crack that bottle. Let me just have a glass because whatever. Like, I don't want to worry about work and kids. Let me have the second glass. And you know what? I'm not going to leave whatever's left in the bottle. I'm just going to finish the bottle. And she says, every day. It was every day. She goes, now I microdose and I'm more present for my kids, more
Mhm.
present at work. I'm more present for my husband. And so we had this conversation just because of a t-shirt. We connected.
I
We
love that.
created this community of something that we both know that, hey, you know what? We have this little secret. You know what I mean? How are you doing? How am I doing? And that's, I think the more we do that, the better.
I love that. Yeah. And so where can we find you if someone wants to hear about your upcoming projects or,
Yes,
your coaching?
definitely.
Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah. So CesarMarin.net is my landing page. That's the homepage. Cultivating Wisdom on Instagram is pretty much my open door to my everyday nuttiness, wonderness, and lovableness. And cultivatingwisdom.net is the apparel store where you can go and get really cool apparel. We'll put in there something. We'll do a Daria 20% off all your followers and listeners. They'll get a 20% off from the store with a Daria 20. Rock a microdosing t-shirt and start these conversations. There's really cool shirts. There's one that says much love, which is what the mushrooms make us have. There's just conversation openers. So we'd love for you to be out there where our gear. Christmas is coming up. If you have a psychonaut, get them a present. So it's always good. So yeah, that way you don't have to wear anything too trippy.
I love it.
Exactly.
And if you
Exactly.
found this episode valuable, please consider sharing it with your friends and family. Together, we can really expand access to more deeper, profound healing. And also, I'm going to link all of Cesar's information in the show notes below. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for more insightful content. And if you're interested in getting involved in the industry, my DMs are open. Cesar, I'm sure your DMs are open.
Yes.
And reach out to us and share this episode. And thank you so much for tuning in to this lovely conscious conversation.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Daria. Thank you so much.
A pleasure. Bye.